Kenny, this is Dennis Clark, and I'm going to review your video. You got a little bit back to what we were doing. You drifted back into some old habits here. At least I don't know what you've done between now and last time I saw you, but last time I saw you, you pointed it out and you got a few done. So there's a couple of issues with this, right? And that's one of them right there. When the club points that far to the right of your target, like there's your target, and that's where the club is pointed. If there was an extension to that, if the camera allowed, it would be a good 40 yards right. When that happens, the club gets very steep. In addition to that, you can come outside with it. So we're trying to get your hands to drop. I'm going to give you a video to look at here. I think these comparison videos, which I show you, I think they're very helpful. A lot of my students like them because even though you are not, I'm not trying to teach you, or you can't have this professional model swing, they're really good to look at and get a feeling for what's going on. So there's two things you're going to see here that I'd like you to keep working on. One of them is the drop to the inside of this line. And the other one is the plane, the incline of the shaft, which is equally important, by the way. So you see where he has it there, and then you see how much flatter it came down there. About 15-20 degrees flatter than what it was, which is the goal. The club has to lower. In other words, when any of us are at the top of the swing, we're not in a position to hit the ball. The arms have to come down because they're up in the air, obviously, to put it overly simplified. But when they come out like that, and the club is that steep, I want you to notice two things about this. Is your arms are out, his arms are back. Now he's at the same point in the downswing that you are. So draw a line, from a 90-degree line from his hand, the handle of his club, and draw a 90-degree line from so you see how far out you've come. But you also see him coming, this club is visible through his bicep there, almost to his elbow, and you see where it is up here through. That's what we call late. You're not getting your arms down early enough. So I'm trying to get you down two things, inside and a little bit earlier. By early, I mean, do you see where his shoulders are still completely turned, and he's dropped his arms that much. So his shoulders are turned, and he drops his arms all the way down to there, and the back is still at the target. Now, a number of times during the lesson today, I mentioned to you, keep your back to the target, swing your arms while your back is to the target. Yeah, there's some issues with your backswing too, but if you see here, elbow tucked in, and the right forearm is almost vertical. You see your elbow flying in your right forearm there. So as you work on that, you'll be able to get this club back on a better plane. That won't necessarily get it down inside. So there's two things that we're concerned about here: the direction of your swing, which tends to be that way, and the incline of the shaft. Okay, so what you want to fight for at the top of your swing here, Kenny, is to get that left wrist as flat as possible. You see his left wrist here? It's perfectly flat. When it cups, the left wrist gets in a cupped position, it's going to come down too steeply. So keep turning. See, at this point I would like you to be a little more turned. You've moved the club a good ways with your arms there, but you haven't turned. So you got to work on that shoulder turn. So he's starting to turn a lot more. By the time he gets halfway back, he's pretty turned, really. Okay, so keep turning the shoulders. That's important that we get that right shoulder back. And just keep pushing that club back. Just keep pushing it back. Just fold the right arm there. See right there. If that was the end of the backswing, I'd be perfectly okay with that. Because this next part is what's making it too steep. Now the club's standing straight up when the elbow goes out like that. Now it's in a position to get really steep. And has to come out a ways. So you see how outside the ball it is? That's the other thing we have to work on. We've got to get the arms down inside. Look for my machine to catch up here and see if we get you on this one. So that last part of I would like the club eventually, if we get this right where we want it, and to get your maximized distance and your better scores, like the club no further than that, right down the target line. There's your target line. Club wants to be parallel to it. Now this was the one that we did a little later in the hour, and you can see although it's still not under the line enough, it's a whole lot better than the other one was. So that's the deal. Turn, you have to, some of these things you got to feel on your own. There's no drill or teaching aid that really will get it there for you, and you feel like you're swinging while your back is still to the target, so to speak. And once you get that, you'll be inside with a little flatter swing and maximize your distance. Right now, the distance loss is caused pretty much entirely by the fact that the club is steep and therefore very open coming from the outside. You're cutting across to the left there. So if you had a clock dial there, and we set 12 o'clock at the target out there, you'd want to feel like you were swinging, this way from the inside, even out to 1:30, 12:30 there, 1 o'clock, 7 to 1, 7 to one. And one of the things that I try to do is I put a ball out in front of me when I practice, and for a lot of my students, especially, that come over the top. If this be your target, you put a ball out here. You just try to swing toward it. And the last thing you got to do is release your hands. You got to keep the 10-finger grip, both hands well to the right, and you really have to roll them over, and you got to roll them over much earlier than you think. It's not you can't wait till the bottom to do that, because every shot, if we can get every shot to hook, you're going to get rid of a lot of this over the top motion. Okay, there you go, Kenny.